Hello,
Hello, good morning.
good morning.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Helly. So while we have wait others to join by 11,
Okay, that's all right.
yeah, I believe the mic is working and you can share your screen. I saw the test just right now.
You saw what?
You testing the recording the
Yeah, the video and all that.
I saw that.
Oh, you can hear me clearly, right?
Of course I can.
All right, so this is good. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Hi, good morning. Host, the floor is yours. You can start. Hi, good morning, everyone. You're welcome to the Genesis conference. Host BBM, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session on the Genesis conference. If you can hear me, can I know in the chat box, please? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. So once again, welcome to today's session on the Genesis conference. Um, okay. This conference is being hosted by the Genesis Company, and the theme for this conference is the velocity of ideas. And this conference started yesterday. I'm sure that a number of us were part of the conference yesterday. If you're part of the conference yesterday, can I know in the chat box? I'm sure many of us learned a lot of, I'm sure many of you learned a lot of things if you're part of the meeting yesterday. I'm sure you learned a lot of things from our speaker yesterday. Okay. If you're part of the meeting yesterday, can you just let me know in the chat box if you're part of the meeting yesterday? Let me know in the chat box. Okay. All right. All right. So this morning session, we're going to be having our speaker is going to be Otunla Ayegba. All right, so this morning we're going to be having our speaker. Her name is Otunla Ayegba. She's the founder of Kids and Teens Business Hub, and she'll be taking us on the topic from idea to prototype to product. I'd like us to meet her speaker. Her name is Otunla Ayegba, a graduate in information technology, dedicated to transforming ideas into innovative and profitable solutions in HOA and company. Armed with a degree in IT, she extends her expertise globally, providing strategic consultation service that span across branding, team building, talent management, ideas, and scaling. Odola's passions for teaching shines as she helps individuals gain clarity in their business ventures. In parallel, she's owning a robust skill set in corporate finance and human resource, adding depth to her versatile approach in the dynamic business landscape. She is the founder of Kids and Teens Business Hub, a non-profitable organization whose focus is to build the next generation of business. All right, so let's make welcome our host, Otola. Are you there?
Yes, thank you, the host. Currently, according to the calendar, Mr. Hayomide Odunmakinde is the owner of this morning session, 11 a.m. to 12 a.m., while Ms. Odunla Odunmakinde is the owner of the evening session. So I think you should introduce Mr. Ayo. Is on board, Odumake.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'm so sorry. I think that was a mistake on my part. Okay, so our speaker this morning will be Ayomide Odunmakinde. Sorry for that error. And it's going to be taking us on the topic artificial intelligence and creative intelligence. All right. So Mr. Ayodele Odunmakinde is he here? Okay, yeah, you said it's already on the call. Okay. Mr. Ayomide Odunmakinde is a research scholar at Square, employs memory and long context understanding in large language models, LLM, pushing the boundaries of machine understanding, previously a research engineer at Epsilon Labs. He focused on diffusion models for generating high quality synthetic data at Red Labs. He enhanced real time sport analytics and developed NLP solutions for low resource languages. His diverse background extends to computer vision application in agriculture, targeting efficient pest and disease control, showcasing a commitment to leveraging technology for diverse challenge. All right, so let's welcome our speaker, Ayomide Odunmakinde. Let's have you.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, great. So just give me couple of minutes to share my screen. Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Ayomide. Um I currently work as a research scholar at Cohere. Cohere is a Canadian AI startup working on large language models. Um Kind of similar to what OpenAI is doing. And yeah, many of the co-founders were ones at Google and OpenAI before they split to start Cohere. So my work basically is in research, AI research, and currently I'm working on memory systems for large language models. And the reason for that is current systems don't remember stuff very well, and I'm trying to see if we can build systems that are able to recollect conversations from weeks or months ago. And also, I work in multilingual models too, which is basically building an AI system that is able to speak multiple languages. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence and creative intelligence. And please feel free to interrupt me or ask questions as we move. So yeah, I'm going to be starting off with a quote by one of my favorite scientists, which is Richard Feynman, who said that I cannot create. What I cannot create, I do not understand. And the reason for this is that I believe that to understand how best to collaborate with some of these systems, it is good you understand a little bit about the systems themselves. And I'm going to be starting off with explaining AI as simple as possible and precisely what we are trying to do in the field. So I will start off with the philosophy of the field, which I have a little picture here which sort of replace, I don't know how many of us know about the famous thinking man statue by Rudin, being replaced by an AI that is actually thinking. So the question would be if the systems truly think, or probably they are just smart at finding patterns, which is a very interesting question in itself. So let's start off with what the philosophy is. The idea is to get to a point where you have machines that can think like humans, or at best are able to approximate human thinking, right? So you want to build a system that is able to actually think rationally and can act like humans. There is a bit of conflicting ideas at this point, which is what does it mean to think rationally and what does it mean to think like humans, which is not clearly defined. But here, the idea is to finally distill human intelligence into machines or silicon-based machines, which is what computers are. So going over a little bit of terminology, you must have probably come across one of these three buzzwords: machine learning, deep learning, data science, which can be very confusing. And the idea for machine learning is just the study of algorithms that can learn from data. So data is like a really important commodity right now in the world, and we are producing petabytes of data on a daily basis with all the content we are putting on the internet. And we want to be able to make sense out of that, and that's where machine learning comes in. Deep learning is a branch of machine learning which has to do with deep neural networks, and deep neural networks are algorithms that take inspiration from the way the brain is wired. And I think they are probably the most popular branch of machine learning right now. Okay, I think someone is raising up his hands. Or was that a mistake?
That was probably a mistake. You can
Uh,
continue, please.
okay, so yeah, and data science is the use of machine learning and statistical methods to model data for predictive analytics. So the idea of data science is that given historical data, I want to be able to predict the future. So these are like the three terminologies that are quite popular right now in AI. And this is where the whole buzz is right now, which is deep learning, this idea of trying to mimic the way the human brain works and build systems that can actually think like us. All right, so the topic is actually artificial intelligence and creative intelligence. And I feel like we need to define what creativity is, because it's quite important to know what precisely separates humans from AI at this current point. Because in terms of memorization, AI systems are extremely good at memorization. For example, ChatGPT or GPT-4 was trained on the entire internet. So it's capable of remembering every single thing said on the internet up to its cutoff point. And even right now, it's capable of using tools that allows it to actually browse through the internet to get whatever information it wants. So right now, systems are very good at memorizing. So the question is, what really separates humans from artificial intelligence? And I think it has to do with this thing called creativity. And I have a little story here which basically summarizes creativity. And it is this idea of humans being able to transcend perception and understanding, right? It's this idea of being able to go beyond just rote memorization, rules that we've learned through study, and we kind of transcend into an intuitive level or an intuitive understanding of our field, right? Which I would like to call the fingertip feeling. So if you've been at something for a long time and you really, really study it, there are things that come to you at the snap of your finger, which you cannot really explain. And I think that is actually where uh, creativity comes from. And a good or an important ingredient of creativity is this idea of going beyond the skill. And there's something crucial I want to point our attention to here. This is a cook, and it was like when I first began cutting up oxen, all I could see was the ox itself. So there is a point where you start off from being an absolutely newbie at what you do, and you slowly kind of evolve through constant practice over the year to become a master, where creativity becomes what you do. So you could see creativity as stretching your skill to the highest level. And I think that's quite important to note, because I do not believe creativity is something we were born with. I think it's a skill that would actually need to cultivate. And that comes through years of hard work and a lot of practice. So that's the point of this story. And I believe creativity is cultivated in tuition. This is actually a quote by me, anyways. So creativity is cultivated in tuition because the idea is you want to get to a stage where you are sort of capable of um thinking very fast in an intuitive way, but most of the time your educated guesses or your intuition is highly cultivated and extremely accurate. So that's like the idea behind creativity. So creativity flows from extensive hard work on a particular field over a long number of years, right? So yeah, and it's very important to remember that these machines are not creative. So what actually distinguish we humans from the current systems we have right now is the fact that the current systems we have are not creative. They are good at memorization, they are good at mimicking human understanding and thinking, but they are not creative, right? They cannot bring forth new ideas, right? Once something is not in their training data, then they are incapable of actually doing it. And that's very important to note. Yeah, I had a lot of mixed feelings putting this slide in, but for those who love a bit of technicality, or for those who are interested in what precisely powers all the artificial intelligence existing right now, it is actually this little thing called the transformer models. And it was invented in 2017 by a group of researchers from Google. And okay, so let me brag a bit. So luckily for me, my current co-founder, the co-founder of the CEO of Cohere, was one of the researchers that actually worked on bringing this to life. And the idea is quite simple, really, from a technical standpoint, but from 2017 up to this moment, AI completely changed because of this little algorithm. And I mean, from OpenAI to Google to Microsoft to everything you see called AI, all have this algorithm embedded in them. Of course, different iterations, different versions, different variations. But yeah, it's quite the same, right? So, which means you could divide the AI era into what happened pre 2017 and what happened after 2017. So, what we are enjoying right now is stuff that came after 2017. So, what's the idea of generative AI? Yeah, I should bring your attention to this. So this is the algorithm that ushered in the era of generative AI. And the idea of generative AI is AI that creates. I'm sure most of you know the company called OpenAI, right? And the company called Midjourney. Midjourney is an image generation company which a lot of people have used to generate images for books, images for posters, company logos, and so on and so forth. And OpenAI, of course, ChatGPT is like fast becoming an household name right now. So everybody seems to know what ChatGPT is. So the things they have in common is that they are able to create text, images, and right now videos is becoming a thing, and audio, right? So they are not just learning from data anymore, but they are capable of creating using what they actually learned from data. And that is the key important thing about the current state-of-the-art systems, or generative AI, as they are called. They are AI systems that are actually capable of creating, right? Which I think is quite fascinating, although ridiculously simple from a technical standpoint, but I think overall it's quite fascinating. So these are the kind of systems I work with on a day-to-day. Majorly, last year I spent most of my time working with image generation systems. This year I'm mostly working on large language models. So yeah, generative AI, AI that creates. Now, the interesting thing, which is I think the increasing trend we are beginning to see from generative AI, is this idea of copilot, which is this idea that whatever tasks humans are capable of doing, you can always find an AI that can augment the ability, or that can augment the knowledge of the human performing the job, right? And that's the idea of copilots. The idea of copilots is that, okay, I can have an AI that sits with me as I try to create, or as I try to bring forth ideas. I can have AI that kind of serve like support or like aid to whatever I'm trying to do. And basically, they have three important components. The first thing is that they know a lot. Like I said, Chat GPT, Google Gemini, Cohere's systems like Coral are all trained on internet-wide data, so they understand the entire internet, and that's a very important thing to note. And when I refer to the entire internet, I'm referring just to text on the internet, so I'm not referring to videos or to images, but majorly text from the internet. That's the first thing. They know a lot. The second thing is that they can do a lot, so they are capable of using tools, right? This was a trend that started in 2023 with the introduction of, I think, with the introduction of a framework called LangChain. People saw the need to be able to train AI systems in a way that they can actually use tools. And we saw that sort of evolve into GPT-4. When GPT-4 was released, we saw that GPT-4 was capable of using so many tools. It could search the internet. That was different from GPT-3 that wasn't capable of searching the internet, but GPT-4 can search the internet and do all sorts of things. So they are capable of using tools, and they integrate well with current systems. So they integrate well with databases. They integrate well even with video systems like YouTube, like if you have an internal database in your company, they integrate perfectly with them. If you are working with an Excel spreadsheet, they are capable of integrating with the Excel spreadsheet. We see that with Microsoft Copilot, right? So yeah, that's like, they are really, really good at a lot of stuff. They can do a lot of stuff, and they know a lot of things. So those are the three axes to Gen AI. And like I said, we are beginning to see them being used as co-pilots. Now, two things when it comes to co-pilot components. The first one is actually agency. That is, you give the AI the ability to use use tools and internet. So the idea is that if, for example, you want your AI to be able to query all the knowledge in your company, such that instead of having to browse through your knowledge, your company's internal documents, probably your company keeps their documents in Google Docs, or they have it in Notion, or wherever they have it, you can actually sort of give them the ability to actually search through those knowledge bases, and that is agency. So you could ask a question from the AI, and the AI is capable of saying that, okay, I'm going to go through some set of documents to be able to answer your question. And the second thing is long-term memory, which is one of the research I'm working on, and it's this ability of AI to actually recall stuff, but not like in the immediate past, but probably like weeks ago or months ago, you have a conversation with ChatGPT like 3-4 weeks ago, and it's capable of actually remembering everything you said during that conversation. So those are the two things right now that are powering copilots: the idea of long-term memory and the idea of agency. So I think I should give examples of tools that that are kind of like driving some of this copilot narrative. I think one of them, one important tool that I use is Perplexity, which is like a smarter version of Google. So rather than going to Google to do a Google search, Perplexity has access to the entire information Google has access to, but it sort of structures it in a way that it becomes very, very useful to you. Rather than having to go through multiple pages, Perplexity is able to sort of condense information for you. And that is very important for me since I do research. And the second one is GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot is also a very interesting stuff. Like, think of it like a peer programmer for people who program. Think of it as your own personal peer programmer that is able to work hand in hand with you as you write code. Then, of course, a shout out to my own company, which is Cohere, where I work. And we have all bunch of large language models for different use cases, for mostly for enterprises. And these are like the three tools that I use on day to day. Like I said, they all share the same characteristics. They do not take over your job, but rather they augment your knowledge or what you are trying to do. They are good at searching for stuff. They are good at using different tools to actually accomplish their goals. And that is like a general characteristics, regardless of who is building it. That is something they all share. So what are some of the limitations? Because it cannot be all good. I think one important limitation, which was quite obvious from the very beginning. ChatGPT was launched in 2022, I think September. And one thing from the get-go that was really obvious to everybody in the community was actually this problem of hallucination. And it's the fact that the model can actually make up stuffs that do not exist. Right. I think one particular stuff was actually people were using ChatGPT to write scientific articles and papers, and when they get to the citation part where you have to cite or reference, it completely makes up false citations and false references. And that was like very obvious at the beginning, but we've been able to actually bring down hallucination greatly. I have a couple of friends that are working on solely hallucination and building systems that do not hallucinate. The second one is that they are very bad at mathematics. Even though they approximate human reasoning, getting them to adding extremely large numbers together or multiplying extremely large numbers is still a big challenge for most current systems. Then we have common sense reasoning, we have creativity, which is the last one. Of course, things are beginning to change for the first three, right? We are seeing systems that are incredibly getting better at doing mathematics. We are seeing them getting better at doing common sense reasoning. But yeah, creativity, whether or not they become creativity, still remains extremely philosophical, but they are useful. I think that's one thing that is quite important in here right now, is the fact that current systems are actually useful. They just work, right? So yeah, future of work. I think this is something that kind of becomes the conclusion or the end point when we are discussing AI, which is the fact that how would work be affected, right? And I kind of summarize the future of work in a single statement by Andrew Carpathy. So for people who don't know, Carpathy is a researcher who was formerly at OpenAI in 2016, part of the founding members of OpenAI. He left OpenAI to become the director of Tesla, and most of what Tesla did on self-driving was actually done by him. Then he left Tesla, joined OpenAI again, and I think a couple of weeks ago. I think in February he left OpenAI. So he said something quite crucial, which is the hottest new programming language is English. And the reason for this quote is that communication is the key when dealing with all the systems I've mentioned, right? Regardless of what you do day to day, regardless of how you work, you have to learn to communicate with these systems. And that is super important. And the way you communicate with these systems is actually using plain English, right? So when it comes to the future of work, to take the words of Andrew Hung, who is also a researcher, he said AI is the new electricity. And what he was trying to say is that, like electricity affected every single sector, AI is going to affect every single sector. So, which means we are going to see co-pilots in every single sector. We are going to have it in all the softwares that are going to be coming out. You are going to have it in graphics softwares. You are going to have it in product management softwares. You're going to have it in, we are already having it in programming softwares and so on and so forth. But in the end, the interface remains the same, which is how do you communicate with these things? You communicate with them through English, right? And right now, the idea of a 10x worker is basically a person who is capable of integrating extremely well with AI, right? And that is very important to note. Now, of course, there are fears that some jobs are going to be wiped out and some jobs are going to be created. Well, I think one thing interesting to note is that jobs wouldn't be completely wiped out, but they would actually change, requiring some new set of skill sets. And that is something we are still going to need graphics designers, we are still going to need product managers. Of course, we are now going to need people that are able to integrate well with AI. And that we would see a drastic change in the number of workforce, right? So in a company where you have like 20, 30 people working as product managers, you might just shrink down to a size of 10, right? Because you now have workers that are able to actually better integrate with AI. But are we going to have jobs completely wiped out? Actually, I don't think so. But I know that jobs will be transformed by AI greatly. Yeah, so some of the thoughts about the future is that AI will completely eat up the internet, which is something that is becoming a great concern in the research community. So most of the content that will be produced on the internet, and we are beginning to see that most of the content on the internet in terms of text, in terms of images, are completely created by AI. Right, so you have this kind of circularity going on right now where AI systems learn from AI systems because the internet is finite, right? So we're now getting to a point where a large chunk of the internet would become dominated by AI content, right? So AI is definitely going to eat up the internet, which means if your job is tied to the internet, AI will completely eat up your content and would be able to produce your content, right? So if your job is extremely tied to the internet, I think this is something you really need to take note of. Copilots are going to be commonplace. They are going to be embedded in every single software. I think right now Google Docs has copilots where you can have their generative AI help you generate content, and Microsoft is leading the charge on copilots. GitHub has their own copilot. All these organizations, I think Salesforce now has Einstein AI, which is like a copilot also. So we're getting to a point where copilots are like everywhere. I know Adobe is a very important software in graphics, and they have Copilot embedded everywhere right now with generative filling and so on and so forth. So yes, Copilots are going to be everywhere. They are going to be embedded in every single software. The third thing is that right now, where are the challenges? Video generation is still a big challenge. So I think it's safe to say that people in the video generation industry are still, well, a bit safe for now, But I think things are moving rapidly, so we'll see changes in that in the future. So yeah, my final advice is that we are still very early and there is a lot to be done. So I would advise that everybody gets involved and try to do your own part. I think for Africa, we still have a lot to do when it comes to representation in the AI space. So I would advise everybody to just get involved one way or the other, and yeah, make AI safe, make AI usable for people in the global south, which is Africa. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Uh, this was good. Okay, so any questions from? If you have any question, can you please just let us know in the chat box? If you have questions, okay. If you have questions, kindly let us know in the chat box. Okay, so while we wait for questions to come in, Ayomide, thank you very much for this session. All right, so let me ask, what should be the approach for Africans now? This one that AI is going to take a lot of jobs. So what should be the approach?
Oh, that's actually a good question. To be honest, I think we need more Africans in the technical aspect of AI. And the reason for that is that we saw something interesting happen in December, and the first World Conference on AI policy happened in the UK, where all world leaders were actually invited, and a lot of scientists were actually invited in December to the UK for world policy, and Africa had a low representation. And most policies right now are driven by the superpowers, Canada, the US, the UK, France, China, and that's because they are the ones that own the tech right now. So I would say we need to get more involved. Of course, we are beginning to have some countries push back, like Tunisia, thanks to InstaDeep, which is like the biggest AI company in Africa, pushing back in Tunisia. Then we have South Africa with the likes of Lilapa and Masakane and other smaller groups in South Africa. So I think we need to get involved in the technical aspect of AI so that when we have a large chunk of Africans working on some of these applications and algorithms, we can actually be heard, right? And we have a pushback on some of the policies that don't seem pleasant to Africa as a whole. So beyond just consuming, I would say we should take an active part in actually building some of these things.
Okay, thank you very much for that. All right, so we have a question in the chat box. Someone is asking, what are job roles to prepare for in 2024 and 2025?
Yeah, job roles. I mean, well, when it comes to jobs, I would say that except you want to completely change your career, I think whatever you are doing should somehow fit into AI. So don't think too much about you trying to completely change your job or change your direction. I would say that you ask yourself the question, how do I integrate more with artificial intelligence? For example, if you're a graphics designer, you should ask the question, okay, how do I make my graphics a lot better using generative AI? If you're a writer or a content creator or a copywriter, there are tools like Jasper. Jasper AI is a very big AI tool when it comes to content creation and copywriting. So it's all about asking yourself, okay, what are some of the things I can begin to automate with AI? Which means I think one of the biggest issue or one of the biggest barriers to using AI in Africa is the subscription that you have to pay on some of these products. So some of them can cost up to $50 per month, which I think that's a lot of money, right? But if you're able to pay those subscriptions, I can bet that they would make you 10x better. So rather than trying to like completely change your field, ask yourself in what part of your field can you integrate AI with, and search for tools that could actually help you. Like I said, there are a lot of them out there. And rather than completely just throw away your career right now, that's okay, I'm just going to start afresh. Since you have career capital in a particular stuff, just find a way to integrate AI completely into it. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Here's another question. There's a fear that AI will overtake several industries. How do we get involved at our different levels? Speaking of the agricultural sector.
Oh, interesting. So, fun fact, my dad is actually a farmer. He's into cocoa. And this is a discussion we have almost every now and then about AI and agriculture. To be honest, my really honest opinion is that AI is still far from taking over agriculture in Africa, because most of the farming happening in Africa is actually subsistent, and most of what feeds Africa right now is actually a lot of small scale farmers, right? So, which means we've not actually break through the capital needed to actually do commercial farming at scale. So, which means we still have a lot of things to do when it comes to agriculture. So, in my own opinion, I think agriculture is still going to stay the same for a little bit of time in Africa. In Nigeria, for example, I know it's still going to stay the same for a while before AI can actually get involved. One of the first projects I did straight out of school was actually building a pest and disease detection algorithm for farmers, which they could easily subscribe to on their phone. They download the app, and the app can tell them when they have a pest or a disease on their farm, and it can tell them what precisely to do, right? And I think back then we were charging what, maybe $5 per month, which was around 2,000 naira back then, or 1.5 for subscription. And a lot of farmers actually complained about the money, right? So, and another feedback we got is that they understand times and seasons, and they understand precisely when some of these pests and diseases are going to show up, right? So yeah, I think things are still going to remain a little bit subsistent in terms of agriculture in Africa, because there is kind of like a capital gap, or a money gap that we need to break through before people can actually begin to think about, okay, how do I introduce AI? So yeah, I think we still have a long way to go in terms of that. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayomide. Then this is going to be the last question. It says, you said we need to learn some skill sets to be up to the game. What skills should we learn?
Okay, that's a good question, but can the person be more specific? Are you referring to getting involved in AI from a technical point of view, or do you refer to just trying to augment what you do already with AI? Thank you.
Chioma Bella, are you still on the call? If you are, let us know what you really mean. Not sure. Chioma Bella, I'm not sure she's still on the call, but you can talk from both perspectives, the technical perspective.
Yeah. So for the technical perspective, if you want to get involved, then the way I see it is that there are a lot of levels to it. I work as a researcher, right? And most of what I do day to day is actually mathematics and programming. Now there are other roles like software engineering with AI or AI software engineering where you do more of code, right? So from a technical point of view, I would say you pick up a programming language, you walk through it, and slowly move from there into AI. And if you are thinking of AI research, I would say you take your mathematics very serious and do a lot of mathematics. And yeah, and if it is more of, okay, this is what I do, how does AI help me? Then I think trying to find the appropriate tools online that would actually introduce AI into what you do is like the best way to go. So in terms of technical involvement, I think that's like a complete career change. So that's like trying to learn a field of study from the very beginning. That is a lot more involved, right? Like I said, there are different aspects to it. Maybe you want to be a researcher, you just want to be an engineer, as the case may be. So yeah, if you are finding a way to like integrate AI, then go for the tools, check online what tools you can actually use and start using them. If it is more of, okay, I want to do research, then I would advise you probably reach out to me. My this Ayomide Odunmakinde is my name on LinkedIn. Then we can talk or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Hayamide. Thank you so much. All right, we have other questions coming in. I'll take this one. How do I respond in an industry where it seems like AL is taking our jobs?
Yeah, I mean, there is a famous quote. I've forgotten who said it. The person was like, AI is not taking your job. People using AI are the ones taking your job, right? I think the person something along that line that AI is not going to take your job. People using AI are the ones that would actually come for your job. So AI as an entity, not exactly autonomous, right? That's something to bear in mind. There is a driver, which is actually the human who knows how to use the AI tools to increase its own productivity. So it's very important to put that in mind that if you are in an industry where it looks as though AI is taking your job, I think the question what you first need to do is take a pause and ask yourself, who are the people using these tools, these AI tools, and what are they using them for? How can I actually learn them? At the end of the day, it is humans that are using AI that are coming for your job, not the AI systems itself. So it's good to actually keep that perspective.
All right, so you're saying now that AI is not taking our job. What we need to do is just whatever thing we are doing, we should just integrate AI into it because it's also humans that use the AI. So it's
Yeah,
humans that are taking
exactly.
our jobs and not AI itself. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll take this question. It says, I have always not been interested in this AI thing, but you've just broke the ice to me. So, so how do you advise me to build my interest into it? Considering that I am more of a person who is into creativity most of my life, and my current job and career path has a lot to do with writing and public speaking and broadcasting. So this person wants to know how we can get AI into this.
Yeah, building interest, I think starting off from building interest, a practical way would be to just generally understand what is going on in the field, right? So if I could drop some things in the chat, I think there are a lot of channels on YouTube that bring you up to date with what is currently happening in AI. And I think one important one is actually Code Fusion TV, which is a very, very good channel on YouTube. I think building interest is more like just constantly surrounding yourself with the content. So if you start off by consuming a lot of content, then you get excited about what is happening or the possibilities. Then you can move from there into like proper action. And I think when you get excited enough about a feed, or when you get excited enough about something, you would move towards action, which I think it's something anybody can actually do. You can search online to ask yourself the question. You can ask this question, okay, what AI tools are used in writing and public speaking right now? I know about Jasper AI, right? And it's a very big one when it comes to content creation. ChatGPT is also good at content creation. Mid Journey AI is also good at content creation. So yeah, I mean, all these things are just there, but the first thing is to like build the interest by consuming a lot of content on YouTube and sort of just swing into action from there. Now, if you want to go a step further by saying, okay, I want to build some of these systems, then that becomes another discussion. It becomes a different ballgame.
All right. Thank you very much, Ayomide. Let's take this last question. It says, what aspect of AI should primary and secondary school in Nigeria work on?
Yeah, I would say for primary and secondary school, don't worry so much about AI. Focus more on the physics and the mathematics and the chemistry and all the science related courses. If you are a teacher in the secondary school and you want to really get your students involved in the fourth industrial revolution in AI, get them involved in critical thinking in the sciences, right? That is super important. I mean, the reason why I'm able to go technical and become a researcher is because I had a strong mathematics and physics background from secondary school, right? So I think that's somewhere to start from. Don't worry so much about AI. As a matter of fact, AI is a very small field compared to physics and mathematics. So critical thinking in the sciences, in mathematics, how to solve questions, forms a big aspect of what you do in AI, right? So spend a lot of time in secondary school and primary school learning how to do math, learning how to do physics, learning how to do chemistry. And when I say learning how to do, I'm not referring to rote memorization, but actually learning how to think about some of these problems that you encounter in physics and in mathematics. So once you do that, I think you are good to go when you get into the university.
Okay. Thank you very much. But what if this person I'm asking is not a teacher or a student? What if is the owner of the school and they want to know the kind of AI they can also use to improve the running of the school?
Well, I won't. Well, when it comes to running of school management software, that's not something I'm so conversant with, right? So I guess the person will have to do a little bit of background research to see what is being done in that space. It's something I can't talk particularly about. But if the person is a proprietor and the person is trying to introduce AI into the school, I won't say you introduce AI outrightly. I would say you introduce programming as probably an elective course for your senior secondary school students or your senior primary school students. That is if you are looking at what to introduce to them. But in terms of tools that are being used, well, it's not something I'm conversant with. So yeah, you will have to do a little bit of background check on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Haramide. So some persons they are asking if we can have a short list of some of these AI apps AI tools rather.
Oh yeah, sure. Let me just go ahead and um put them in the chat. So Mid Journey, AI, ChatGPT, Jasper, um, Perplexity AI, GitHub, Copilot. So I think those are like a good starting point. Okay, someone asked a question about where does the place of emotions play a major difference in AI and creative intelligence. I think creativity by nature is actually emotional because you have to be emotionally connected to what you do to be very, very creative, right? The act of creating something is kind of emotional, right? At least that's the way I see it. AI right now doesn't have emotions. They are good at just rote memorization, like I said. So yeah, it plays a big role in that. Okay, are there other ones that are free? Well, I can't say. I know ChatGPT, I know Anthropic Cloud, but I don't think any one of them are free. I know Cohere has their own also. But when it comes to free, except you want to go through the hard work of hosting one yourself, then Llama 2 with Olama is a good way to go. Your own chat GPT. But yeah, I would advise you have a very, very good computer to be able to like host your own chat GPT. So Llama 2 is completely open source, so you can just grab the code. But yeah, you would have to like go through a little bit of pain to be able to host it yourself. But yeah, it's something you can host locally and just sort of work with. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful session. Yes, I believe everyone has learned one or two. So if you are in the audience session, please try to tell us, give us a feedback on what we can work on, improve on what you learned from the speakers, your questions. You can drop it into the feedback session, feedback link. We will appreciate that. And do well to appreciate our speakers. They've done a great job. Host BME, the floor is yours. Closing.
All right. Thank you very much once again, I really learned a lot from this session, and I'm sure the audience also did. All right. So don't forget to share what you learned from this session. There's the link in the chat box. It will also be sent to the WhatsApp group. And then the next session for today will be in the evening by 7 this evening. I'm sure that we are all excited to be in this meeting. I'm sure that we've learned one or two things. So you want to learn more. This evening we're going to have Odunmakinde Ayegba. She's going to be taking us on the topic from ideas to prototype to product. And I'm sure that you don't want to miss that session. So please set your alarms, make sure you don't miss it, and also invite more persons to join the sessions. Thank you very much for joining this session. All right, see you in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, host BBME. See you in the evening. I fell off 5